Hello, Fanfest. Great to see you all. I'm super happy that I get to be here with you, not some other random, strange person that I don't know why he was there, but it happened. For those of you who don't know me, I'm CCP Burger. I'm a development manager here at CCP, and I've been working on the Triglavian domain that I'm gonna show you today. Again, it's awesome to be here. EVE Online turning 15. It's we've been, reminiscing a lot about EVE and all the beautiful stories and that we've kind of had in the past. And I wanted to share one story with you guys from my EVE life. So I started playing EVE when I joined CCP Atlanta in 2010, and I think my kind of run to fame in EVE is I claim that I created the shortest living corp in EVE Online with 20 other coworkers that had, I guess, never played EVE or had very little EVE experience. But we decided to kind of band together and do this thing, try it out. We managed to raise 12 billion ISK from fellow coworkers. 12 billion was a lot of money in 2010, or at least I felt it was a lot of money in 2010. My coworkers thought it was nothing, so I don't know. But I ran into some issues right away. We all wanted to be like different races, so I spent my first 3 days training corp management and ethic relations. Probably my least favorite skill in EVE. Oh, it's gone, don't have to worry about it. Then we spent 6 billion ISK in Jira, and we moved up to Torinos. Back then, and still is, it's a pretty busy system up north, one jump away from LoSec. And we had been told that there was plenty of action there. This was not my ship. I could only fly frigates, because remember, corp management, ethics. Everyone fitted everything and its mother. I found this picture in an angry email I sent to a corp mate. People were taking all the ammo, so 420,000 rounds of EMP is probably a little bit too much for a noob. But anyway, since I had spent all my time training useless skills, I flew a frigate. The plan was to venture in, a single jump into a nearby system and find something to blow up, really get that EVE experience. So now we're here, 20 noobs sitting at the gate, ready to blow shit up. And our coworker needs to go and urgently take care of a breakfast burrito. So we sit at the gate for 15 minutes waiting for him to return. Of course uncloaked, because, that's what you do. We jump through, bro cloak, and a fantastic army of 3 was waiting for us. Sadly, I don't have a picture of the battle, but I think this image here sums it up quite nicely. I find myself in a small frigate, a shitty frigate, with really cool guns, but somehow I had forgotten to fit ammo. So I died in like 20 seconds. It was really easy. Others didn't really understand why the modules in their fucking cargo hold were not showing up, so they also died. The whole fleet was out within 5 minutes. Everyone was super bummed. Everyone was super bummed about this, and when we returned to our home station in Torinos, we realized that what hadn't been fitted, people had actually put in their cargo holds. And to make things worse, our coworker had had emptied out our corp wallet. Yep, everyone had access to everything. The corp dissolved that day, having only lived for 3 days. So yeah, that's the story of the shortest living corp in EVE. Pretty nice. I still play today. Though today I mostly fly short-range blaster Vexors that always seem to deplete way faster than they should. But we're not here to talk about my Eve skills. We're actually here to talk about this. And more specifically, we're here to talk about Abyssal deadspace that's coming to you in EVE Online's next expansion, Into the Abyss. There's a lot to cover on Abyssal deadspace and Into the Abyss. So we've actually split this talk into a few talks and roundtables, so you can we can share all the information. Make sure to not miss the ships and modules presentation right after this with CCP Rice, where he's going to go through the Triglavian ships, modules, and Mutaplasmids. Following that, we will have the Triglavian domain roundtable at 3 with myself, Rice, and a lot of the other developers that have been working on this. The art of the Triglavian domain presentation is tomorrow at 2, where we'll go through all things art and effects. And then we have a lore roundtable tomorrow at 3, where we can dig a little bit deeper into the backstory of this whole thing. Angry Concord guy might show up there. I don't know. Let's see. So, Abyssal deadspace. What is this thing? In short, it's a new type of encounter in EVE focused around short session solo gameplay with very EVE-type opportunities for interaction. As a player, you make a series of strategic decisions that are different each session. You build up mastery between sessions by learning the patterns of the Abyss. You will come across new enemies, the Triglavians, and new type of challenges in Abyssal deadspace. If you succeed, you will be awarded accordingly. Yesterday, we got a report from Concord on recent drifter activities in New Eden. So let's recap a little bit.
These recordings, released by Concord, show the capture of a heavily damaged ship found drifting a few days ago in the system of Rainilles. No information has been released on the whereabouts or the fate of its crew, but within hours of being boarded, the ship was towed to the Concord Directive Enforcement Department headquarters in Ulai. There it remained quarantined outside the station for 48 hours before it was deemed safe to dock. Little is known about the crew or the builders of the ship at this time except the name Triglavian, possibly connected to the frequent occurrence of the number 3 in their designs. For the past month, damaged drifter fleets have been mysteriously emerging around various jump gates in New Eden. Appearing in previously unseen numbers, these drifter fleets have been nicknamed Death Balls by Capsuleers. Passive unless provoked, the drifter ships are heavily damaged after some unknown engagements. This has been the cause of speculation about who or what damaged those ships. The Arataka Research Consortium has been the leading element in the drifter investigations, mercilessly attacking them at every opportunity. While these unprovoked attacks on the drifters have raised controversy, they have also been justified as they have provided clues to what has been happening to the drifter fleets. Trinary data vaults have been salvaged from the drifter wrecks. The data they hold is partly corrupted and believed to be Triglavian. The Arataka Research Consortium has been quite successful in extracting fragmented footage from this data and stitching it together. The footage shows drifters engaging Triglavian ships. It is due to these efforts and consequent questions raised by Capsuleers that Concord has finally come forward to shed some light on these events.
Dun dun. So yesterday we met Vexamita of Concord, and he gave you guys a short report on the things that have been happening. And to recap a little bit what he talked about, Professor Mayer of Concord's Project Discovery reported a series of unusual energy spikes last year to Concord. These energy spikes are mapped to pockets of space-time similar to what we know today as deadspace. These pockets are actually, more isolated and require special technology to access, and they have been codenamed Abyssal deadspace. As you know, the Triglavian ship that was recovered by Concord forces was pulled into the DAD station in Ulai, and Concorde managed to actually extract some new technology out of that ship that allows entry to abyssal dead space. And they managed to send in a single Concorde cruiser to explore this new frontier further. Early observations from the drift balls that have been showing up across New Eden lately show an active civilization, the Triglavians, in abyssal dead space. They're definitely a huge threat to all of us. The Triglavian appear to be human in origin, but due to the isolation, the development of their psychology, society, and technology is unpredictable and unknown. However, it's clear that Triglavians and drifters are in violent conflict. What we've seen so far matches what Professor Meyer reported. Concorde only has direct knowledge of the initial layer, or the initial tier, of these space-time pockets. And once they stabilize the technology, you will be able to acquire a filament to enter this new frontier. Concorde test expedition into the abyss has revealed areas of relative calm within the gravitational maelstrom. Apparently, natural nodes of calm are enhanced by unknown technologies that shelter ships and structures from the crushing depths of the abyss. However, there are other dangers there. Storms and other phenomena has been detected, affecting ship systems. The pockets seem to be periodically unstable, and our own cruisers could only operate safely for a limited amount of time. The calm zones in abyssal dead space are linked together with what appears to be a Triglavian gate network. You will need to traverse this network before finding a way back to the trace of entry you left behind. But be careful, opportunities for escape are limited, and the trace you left behind can be scanned down in regular space. In abyssal dead space, you will encounter new threats and discover new technologies. Well, now the lore stuff is out of the way. Let's go into what this practically means. First off, to enter abyssal dead space, you will need a filament. The tier 1 filaments, or the base level tier filaments, can be found on the market or in relic sites. Filaments to higher tiers will be found in abyssal dead space, and it's in your hands if you want to use them yourself or sell them on the market. Concorde has so far discovered 5 tiers, or 5 depths of abyssal dead space. The filaments themselves will display a weather effect, similar to a wormhole effect, that will be in the abyssal pocket. So you got to make sure to fit according to weather. Filaments can be activated almost anywhere in space, in high sec, low sec, null, and wormholes. So as long as you're not close to any celestial structures, you need to be of a certain distance, and we have similar restrictions as safe log-off. So no timers, no cloaking, things like that. And right now, we're limiting abyssal dead space to T1 faction and T2 cruisers. Concorde deems the deeper tiers of abyssal dead space are extremely dangerous and will try to enforce restrictions of their use. But you have to be careful. You will leave a probable trace in known space, where you left for abyssal dead space. Nobody has the technology yet to follow you into your abyssal pocket, but eager capsuleers can wait for you to return back from the abyss. Once you're in the abyss, you will notice right away the weather effect that surrounds your ship. The weather has buff, debuff, and both, affecting your ship and module's abilities. You will also notice some other limitations in the system. There's a different camera in the system. There is no warping, there is no cloaking, and there is no local. And there are some other limitations that, will be a surprise and delight, I guess. You can plan your fit according to the weather effect and the tear or depth stated on the filament, but you can't predict what else you will encounter in the abyss. You're really unlucky this time around. Your fit isn't optimal for fast-moving rogue drone swarms. But there is a Triglavian deviant automata suppressor there. Those are specifically hostile towards drones and missiles. You strategically orbit the structure at 5 kilometers and web the drones as they enter the area of effect of the structure. There can be a real benefit to tactically understand your surroundings and using it to your advantage. You can't return home. You can only continue to another encounter through a Triglavian gate or Triglavian gate. The same weather effect is in fact here, but we have different localized effect this time around. So rather than the deviant automata suppressor, now you have a cloud formation that has different effect. We have different NPCs, so different decisions altogether this time around. You defeat the NPCs, you stick around for a little while to repair your armor, but you only have a couple of minutes until things start to shake and you have to move on. Again, the same weather effect, but different localized effect and a boss spawn. You barely make it, but somehow you pull through. You pick up your reward from for the pocket from a muta colony in space. You will be able to find all sorts of interesting stuff in Abyssal deadspace. First off, filaments. There's a chance that you will find a filament to the same tier that you're in, or if you're lucky, you can find filaments to deeper and harder pockets of space. And just a little side note here, all the images that you're seeing, we just turned off the UI and took screenshots. So no Photoshop, nothing. This is how this thing actually looks. Pretty sick. And then that applies to every slide in the presentation, except for the key art, because we don't want the Into the Abyss to be in front of your screen when you're playing. It's just, tough. Mutaplasmids can be combined with regular modules to create new Abyssal tech modules. The Mutaplasmid changes the attributes of the modules in unpredictable ways. The deeper you go, the higher chance of finding a Mutaplasmid, and the higher quality ones will appear there more often. You will also find BPCs to build the new Triglavian equipment in Abyssal deadspace. Again, deeper you go, better the loot. These are not the only rewards you will find in Abyssal deadspace. We will also have resources to build the new Triglavian equipment, and some sweet Triglavian suits to embrace the Triglavian that lives inside all of us. We will also have some more beautiful things that you will discover in Abyssal deadspace. Abyssal pockets are unstable, and they only stay active for a period of time. You will not be able to settle in Abyssal deadspace. We now activate the game, and we activate the gate, and we return home. But careful, the re-entry beacon is probable, and you never know if someone is waiting for you on the other side. You can now dock up and sell your loot on the market. You can cook up some mutated modules, or you can risk what you have already found and activate another filament for another Abyssal deadspace pocket. So, what prompted us in doing Abyssal deadspace? Like always, we're looking for new ways to modernize and push the limits of EVE Online. As you know by now, we've been working on new AI and other tools to allow us to build procedurally generated content, which is at the heart of the new Abyssal deadspace tech. But I'll go a little bit more into that later. we want to challenge ourselves. We want to challenge ourselves in creating accessible short session gameplay. There are a lot of great ways to play a short session in EVE, but once you really start to engage with some of the core sandbox features of the game, it's really easy to get sucked in. Learning and developing from previous experiences and features, we want to push further on work, allowing for more fun and engaging ways to hop into EVE. We're aiming that you can clear an Abyssal deadspace pocket in no more than 15 minutes. Solo gameplay is a big part of EVE, and majority of play sessions are actually played solo. They're an important factor in the social construct of the game. But oftentimes, PvE content can feel stale and predictable. We really want to push the challenge of PvE in EVE. What we're hoping to show here is our commitment to make the world feel more engaging and alive, filled with surprise and awe. And lastly, we want to create proving grounds for new gameplay, art, and tech in EVE. We can try new ideas in a more contained space and iterate before rolling the features to the rest of the game if those features fit and make sense. So let me go through some of the things that we're experimenting, or we will be experimenting with when we ship. First off, we're pushing the boundaries on environment gameplay effects, elevating the idea of the environment being an active player in the session. Though we have had localized effects before in EVE, or localized weather, we've never seen them at this scale or level. Stacking local effects and weather will make positional gameplay even more important than ever before. We're also pushing, for new limits with mega celestials and environments. These asteroids here make keep stars look tiny. Screenshots. We want to make the space feel different than you're used to. We want to reinforce the feeling of claustrophobia while still maintaining a sense of scale. We are limiting the camera drone's max distance from your ship, but at the same time, we're also exaggerating the field of view, so you get a really good sense of your surroundings. And more and more and more and more. Not all of these changes will be migrated to the rest of the game, but this gives us more tools to deliver proven, functioning, and ultimately more engaging features to New Eden. But this is just a start. We have a big list of features we want to hit. We will continue to work on Abyssal deadspace and seed new and exciting additions as time passes. Like I said earlier, we're aiming that an Abyssal deadspace pocket takes around 15 minutes to complete. One of the issues with that is that we don't want the content to feel repetitive, both on the gameplay side and also on the environment side. So we looked into how we could use the tools that we have already built, extend them in some places, flip them on their heads in other places, and find other ways to maximize the variance with a limited amount of authored content. Let's take a look at the puzzle pieces that make up Abyssal deadspace. We start with an Abyssal deadspace pocket. A weather effect, which is stated on the filament that you activated, is applied and is consistent throughout the pocket, type and strength. There are 5 different types of weather, and each weather has specific gameplay effects. First off, we have the electrical storm. It has some EM resist penalty, but there's also some cap recharge bonuses in this weather. Next up is the exotic particle storm. Here you will have some kinetic resist penalties, but scan resolution bonuses. My favorite, the dark matter field. Oh, it's so dark, it's so beautiful. There will be some turret range penalties here, and some velocity bonus. It's a lot of fun to play this one. The gamma ray afterglow will have some explosive resist penalties, and you will get some shield bonus here. And the last one, the plasma firestorm. There are thermal resist penalties here, but armor bonuses. All of these effects will apply both to you and the NPCs in the scene. It's pretty nice. So, next up, we spawn 3 encounters in the pocket. The content of each encounter can be decided on the pocket layer or on entry to that encounter. Each encounter has a limited safe zone, around 150 kilometers in diameter. Outside this, the harshness of Abyssal dead space is deadly. If you leave the safe zone, you will start to take damage, and if you wander too far out into the abyss, you will be crushed. Next up, we spawn the dungeon dress pieces. These are mostly uninteractable objects, and the asset family, or the environment asset family, is set on the pocket level, so you'll have a consistent set throughout. Most of the dressing is outside the safe zone to give you more space to engage with the encounter. We have built 3 new environment asset families. First off, we took these familiar asteroids and we scaled them up a lot, and then a little bit more. Next up is the beautiful crystal set. And lastly, a super nice pillar set. Note, these dungeons, or these set pieces, are not tied to the weather to maximize the variability that we can spawn. Then we put localized effects, and then we insert localized effects and entry and exit points. The localized effects add effects on top of the active weather effect. There might be multiple localized effects per encounter, but yeah, you will see. For instance, here we have the bioluminescent cloud. It actually pushes your signal radius up by a lot. And the filament cloud that ups the cap usage of shield boosting. You might also run into the Triglavian structures, such as the deviant automata suppressor that we talked about earlier. That one really likes to chew through drones and missiles. The size of the localized effects can vary. Some are small enough to avoid easily, while others take up big portions of the safe zone. We procedurally select NPC groups for each encounter. Difficulty tiers will scale in both DPS, tank, and threat dimension. All NPCs use the new NPC AI. So who will you run into in Abyssal Dead Space? First off, rogue drones. Rogue drones have been identified in Abyssal Dead Space. You will run into swarms of them. They will all have new NPC AI, giving them more abilities and smarts to react to the situation. And of course, the Triglavians, with their new weapons and their new tactics. They seem to have some control over the rogue drones, forcing rogue drones to support them. CCP Rise will go into more detail on Triglavians, their modules, and the Mutaplasmids in his ships and modules presentation just after this. Triglavians and drifters are bitter enemies. If you run into both of them in an encounter, be prepared for a three-way fight. We will have the drifter battleship, and then we will also have the new drifter cruiser that you can see here. Pretty sweet. Supporting the drifters, there will be sleepers as well in Abyssal deadspace. And like all the new NPC AI, they will pot you. Because that's what NPCs should do. On top of this all, we've added post effects and custom nebulas to really tie this whole thing together and create a truly unique play session for you to master. When it all comes together, we end up with a pretty insane amount of possible dungeons and experiences in Abyssal deadspace, crafted procedurally by our engine. We are still working super hard on polishing, balancing, authoring, and yes, refactoring of some of the things. We will hit singularity in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that. This is going to be pretty epic. Screenshot. We are super excited. We're super excited about this feature, and we can't wait to get it into your hands and see what you do with it in our next expansion into the Abyss, shipping on May 29th. To hear more about the stuff that we talked about here today, make sure to check out CCP Rice's ships and module presentation just after this, where he will go more into the Triglavian ships, the modules, and the Mutaplasmids. Also, we will have a Triglavian domain roundtable at 3, where myself and CCP Rice and most of the other developers that are working on this feature will be. The art of the Triglavian domain is tomorrow at 2, where we will talk all things art and effects. And the lore roundtable tomorrow at 3, where we will dive into the backstory and all things lore. I will see you guys at the pub crawl tonight. Thank you.